Now, these bounce setups can be found on any kinds of stocks, but I tend to only like to take long bounce setups on stocks that have high momentum. And I also like to take short bounce setups on stocks with low momentum or bearish momentum. So how do I determine if a stock has a high momentum or low momentum? All right, so let me show you what I look at. So again, ideally, we want to go long on stocks with the strongest bullish or high momentum. Okay, and these are the criteria I look for. The first thing is I look at the overall market trend, and the market trend has to be bullish. And to look at the market, I look at the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 must be above the 20 exponential moving average, and it should be sloping up as well. So in other words, before I trade, I always take a look at what the S&P 500 is doing. So the S&P is the market index, it represents the whole market. So when the S&P is on an uptrend, I look for stocks to go long. If the S&P is on a downtrend, I avoid going long on any kind of stock. So that's the first thing I look at. The overall market trend must be bullish, number one. Number two, I look for the stock having a strong relative strength. Now, relative strength means how strong is the stock relative to the other stocks in the S&P 500. So I want to make sure that the stock that I buy, which I'm going long on, is stronger than all the other stocks on the S&P 500. So I use a relative strength indicator to determine this. Okay, and this indicator can be found on charting software like Think or Swim. And I'm going to show you how it works in a short while. So basically, I like to see that the relative strength indicator is above the red line. Now, what is this red line? When it's above the red line, it tells you that the stock is stronger than the rest of the S&P 500 stocks. If it's below the red line, it is weaker than the rest of the market. So I want it to be above the red line and trending up as much as possible. Right? So again, I'm going to show it to you in a short while. Next, I always want to ensure that when I go long on a stock, the stock belongs to a strong sector or industry. In other words, the sector and the industry the stock is in should also be on a strong uptrend. And I can check this out by going to Finviz and going to Groups, Sector, and Charts. And I'll show you an example in a short while. Finally, the stock which I go long on must have strong average volume of at least 150 to 200,000 shares traded per day. So let me show you an example of one of the stocks which I traded long recently, PII. Alright, so this is a recent long bounce trade I took on this stock, which is called PII. So you can see at this point, I saw a valid bounce setup. As you can see that this stock was bouncing off the 20 EMA, alright, and this is a 2-candle reversal pattern, okay. This is in fact an inside bar pattern, and this is a confirmation candle, right? So my entry was the high of this confirmation candle, and the stop loss was at the low of this swing low candle, and my target price was just at the high of this candle, right, which is a 1:2R. Okay, so you can see that both the MACDs are bullish, and stochastics was below 30 at the swing low candle, right? So it meets all the characteristics of a bounce setup. But again, how do I know it's a high momentum stock or it's a high momentum market? Again, even before I look at this stock, I look at the overall market. And so I look at the S&P 500, right? So let me go to put in the S&P 500, and I look at the overall trend of the S&P 500, right? So what you're seeing here is the 20 exponential moving average, the 20 EMA, the 50 moving average, and the 200 moving average. So as a short-term trader, I always take reference to the 20 EMA, right? So I want to make sure that the S&P 500 is above the 20 moving average. So as long as it's above the 20 moving average, like here, you can see the whole market is on a strong uptrend. And that's when I go long on individual stocks, because a rising tide lifts all boats, okay? And I will not tend to go short when the whole market is on a very clear uptrend, right? If the market was on a downtrend, then I'll look to go short on stocks. Okay, so besides looking at the market, what else did I say? I also look at the sector and the industry. So in this case, I was trading PII. All right, so what I do is I go to finviz.com and I check the sector and industry for PII. So PII is Polaris Industries. And once you load it into the ticker, you can see that it is in the consumer goods sector and under recreational vehicles industry. So I want to ensure that the sector and the industry are on an uptrend, okay, ideally. If not the industry, at least the sector. Now over here, I can also check the average volume. As you can see, the average volume is 854,000 shares traded. That's well above the 150 to 200,000 shares criteria that we have. So it's a high volume stock. It meets the volume criteria, right? Okay. So how do we check the sector and the industry? What we do is we go to groups over here, click on groups, and look at sector, and go to charts. And we're looking for consumer goods. There we are. So you can see that consumer goods is on an uptrend. Okay, by the way, this orange line you see, that's the 50 moving average. So what you want to see is you want to see that the price is above the 50 moving average and the 50 is sloping up. So this tells you the whole sector is on an uptrend. Okay. Now, if you want to be a bit more strict, you can also look at the industry. Okay, and recall what industry is PII in? It's in the recreational vehicles industry. So you have to scroll down and look for recreational vehicles. Let me just look for R. There you go. So you can see recreational vehicles is also on a very clear uptrend. It was on a downtrend over here. So I wouldn't have gone long on PII over here, but I'll definitely go long over here. All right. So that's how you check the sector and the industry trend and the market trend. And that's how you determine the high momentum of a stock. All right. So the opposite is true when I'm going short, right? When I'm shorting stocks, I ideally want the market, the S&P 500 to be on a downtrend, okay? Now, there are exceptions where I'll short stocks when the market's on an uptrend. And the exception is if I've got many long trades in my portfolio. For example, I've got like 5 or 6 or 7 long trades. I may take 1 or 2 short trades to kind of like hedge against my long positions, right? I may do that at times. But again, I'd rather the whole market be on a downtrend when I'm going short on stocks, all right? So again, low momentum criteria. The market trend should be bearish with the S&P 500 below the 20 exponential moving average and sloping down. Unless, again, like I said, I've got many long positions, I'm taking 1 or 2 shots to hedge my long positions, yeah? Now, next, again, low relative strength. I want to ensure that if I'm going short, the stock which I'm shorting has low relative strength, okay? And I check the relative strength indicator at Thinkorswim, and the relative strength indicator should be, again, below the red line and falling. And I'll show it to you in a short while. I forgot to show it to you for the high momentum criteria. I apologize. Let me show it to you right after this, okay? Next, I want to check, again, the sector and the industry. And for that, again, I go to Finviz. I showed you that just a while ago. And again, if I'm going short, I want the sector and industry to be on a downtrend, right? To be below the 50 moving average and sloping down. That's ideal, okay? And again, average volume over the last 60 days should be 150 to 200,000 or more, okay? Finally, understand that shorting stocks has an inherent risk, which is if the stock suddenly doubles or triples in price overnight because of some fantastic news, you could end up losing more than 1 hour, okay? So in order to protect ourselves, we need to be a bit strict about shorting stocks. I avoid shorting stocks with price less than $10. Why? Because stocks that are above $10, like 20 or 50 bucks, they don't have a very high chance of doubling or tripling easily, okay? But if you short very low price stocks like a $1 stock, penny stocks, these stocks can double or triple overnight. So it's very risky to trade low price stocks, right? Do not trade stocks below $10. Do not short stocks with market cap below $1 billion. Okay, you can check the market cap at finviz.com, and it's also good to avoid shorting stocks with short interest ratios greater than 8. All right, and I'll explain that in a short while. And these are my criteria when I'm shorting stocks. So let's take a look at some examples. All right, so we are back to the chart. So let me show you how to check the relative strength of a stock, right? To ensure that this stock is relatively stronger than the rest of the market. Okay, it's a high momentum stock. So again, let's go back to PII over there. And what you're going to do is using your charting software. I'm using Thinkorswim. I'm just going to go to indicators here, this magic potion, and I'm going to select relative strength. There we go. Okay. Now this is not to be confused with RSI. RSI is relative strength index. That is completely different. That's a different indicator. This is relative strength versus the S&P 500. Okay, versus the S&P 500. So you can click on that, and we will select 6 months. Right. So let's look at the 6 months time frame when checking the relative strength. Okay. So there we are. This is the relative strength of the stock as compared to the S&P 500. And this is the red line I'm talking about. You can see this red line over there. So we want to see that the relative strength, which is this blue line, is above the red line. Okay, so it's above the red line. It's a high momentum stock and it's sloping up. That's what we're going to see. All right. Now, let me show you now a stock that I went short, which is the opposite. And this stock is SNH. SNH. So I shorted this stock over here. Okay, as you can see, let me change my studies to the bounce setup. Here we go. Okay, great. So you can see it was bouncing off this moving average, which is the 100 moving average, and it created a confirmation candle over there, right? So I shorted it over there, and you can see that again, this was a valid trade. And indeed, it has gone, well, it went up slightly. It almost hit my stop loss, did not hit my stop loss, and now it's coming back down, right? So looks like it could be a winning trade. Okay, now again, why did I take this trade? Because this stock is a low momentum stock, or it's a bearish momentum stock. So how do I know? Again, I check the relative strength, click on that, and select relative strength. There we go. Relative strength, and let me remove the other indicators so it's not too cluttered, so you can see it a bit more clearly. And again, select 6 months time frame, and there you go. So you can see the red line is here, right? The red line is here, and the blue line, which is the relative strength, is below the red line. So that tells you that this stock is performing worse than the S&P 500. So that's what we're looking for, all right? In addition, I go to Finviz and I type in SNH, and it tells me that it's in the financial sector and under the REIT healthcare industry. Okay, so again, you can check out the groups. And again, you can go to sector or you can go to industry, which is more specific, and look at charts. Okay. And if you scroll down, I've already pre-selected it here. You can see, there we go, right? Healthcare facilities, and you can see that it's on a downtrend. Okay, it's below the orange line, which is the 50 moving average, right? So you can see that the industry is on a downtrend. So when the industry is on a downtrend, chances are the stock is going to go down as well. Okay, so that gives us the highest probability of shorting a stock when the industry is on a downtrend as well. And if you take a look at again SNH, you can see that the volume is above 150,000 shares, so it's 900,000. It meets the volume criteria as well. And you can see also that the market cap, which I talked about, is 4 billion, right? So it's above 1 billion, right? I said, avoid shorting stocks less than 1 billion. So this above 4 billion, it's fine. And the stock price is selling at $19. So it's above $10. So it's okay, right? You can see the short ratio I was talking about. There's a short ratio. It's 4.53, right? Which is below 8, right? So ideally, we want to short stocks with a short ratio of 8 and below, and not above 8 ideally. Okay, so there we go. So that's how we select the low momentum stocks to go short on.